What's up guys, Matt with BleepinJeep, everything off-road, none of the boring stuff. One of my biggest complaints with the Jeep JL was the steering. The steering was horrendous, is horrendous. So, for that reason, I have a wide selection of new steering components from Steer Smarts. Check this stuff out. This stuff is beef. So we've got a new adjustable track bar, we've got the tie rod and drag link, and all this stuff is going on today. Let's get started. Holy cow guys, this stuff is beef. Look how big that sucker is. So not only do I want to correct the steering issues, but I've got a lift kit coming soon, and this is going to be perfect for the bigger lift and tires. I mean, look at this stuff. Not only was it well packaged, but it's huge, it's massive. So I've got the track bar, I've got the drag link right here, and the tie rod. So look how big these ends are. In a minute here I'll show you the difference between the stock and these aftermarket ones from Steer Smarts. What? In case you want to do this to your JL, down below in the description I'll leave all the links so you can purchase this on your own. Let's put it on. First thing you want to do is get your Jeep up off the ground, and to do that you always want to use jack stands. Never rely on just the jack. So we're going to get this thing up high enough that we can work on it easily and let the axle droop up and down. That way we can have an easier time installing the track bar. Now that we've got it supported well, let's take off this little plastic piece here. There's a couple of 8mm here on the bottom, and then these plastic little clips. You'll need a tool like this, or you can use a screwdriver and basically just pop it in there, pry it out like that, and it releases. 16mm to take these off. That'll give me some more headroom. And when I install the lift, I'll probably cut these suckers off. Now these, as far as I know, all they do is hold the sway bar disconnect automatic thingy on the Rubicon versions. And I've seen them perform off-road, and they really suck, because that's the first thing that you're going to hit on a rock, because it sticks so far down here. So those are going to have to go. I'm not saying you should do that, but we also need to remove the wheels and tires. That'll give us more access to the tie rod ends. Alright, so I will be changing the tie rod, the drag link, the track bar, and part of the steering stabilizer. So what we're going to do is remove all of that right now in one go. So you're going to need basically a, I think this is 13/16 deep well socket. You're going to need a big hammer, and you might need a pickle fork. We'll see once we get there. You like that sound, don't you? Well, that one came out easy. Check that out. So it's a tapered fit, and usually you have to beat on them to get them off. But when you're taking these off, don't take the nut all the way off. Just leave it loose. That way, when you're smacking on it with the hammer and it finally decides to break free, it doesn't fall down. One thing I noticed when I was under here a minute ago, this is factory. Check that out. It seems like a little bit too much of slop for a brand new vehicle, but we'll see if that goes away, which it should, when we install the new parts. That one came right off too. That really surprises me. That is very surprising. Surely the Pitman arm's not going to be that easy. This one's quite a bit tighter fitment, but I can just barely get a socket on there and pull this direction. So, there you go. Oh wow. I really want to start working on newer cars more often. This is so easy. Everything is just finger tight mostly. Alright, I might have to use the pickle fork here. Alright. Got it loose. Ooh, baby. Okay, now before we loosen the track bar, it has a lot of tension on it because the springs are trying to push the axle down and the track bar is trying to keep the axle in place. So there's a lot of tension there. We need to put a jack under here and just lift up on the axle a little bit, and that will alleviate some of the tension for now. And then we can go ahead and loosen this up. You can see there whenever I got that bolt all the way out, it pivoted just a little bit. So whenever we go to put this back in, we'll want to set this track bar up the same as our other one, since we're not adding a lift at this time. And then we'll have to fight with this axle to get it back into place. Alright, so there is the factory track bar, and you can see how much bigger and beefier the Yeti Steer Smarts track bar is. Not only that though, it is adjustable. So that means it's going to work with your lift. So if you've got 2.5, 3.5, it's adjustable to account for that. Now, if you don't know what that means, let me draw you a picture real quick. Okay, so your track bar attaches up here on the frame, and it comes over and attaches here on the axle. Well, what happens when you lift the Jeep up higher off the axle? Well, now, in effect, it shortens your track bar, because now your track bar is coming down here and attached to the axle like this, because you've gained so much height right here. Well, that's not good, obviously, because now your tires are off center. So in effect, you have to lengthen your track bar so that this angle now comes all the way down here, attaches here, and your tires and wheels and axle are again centered right underneath the vehicle. So that's why you need a longer track bar when you lift your vehicle. If you're not installing a lift though, you want to get the same measurement from eye to eye. So what we're going to do is put these on here like so, and then we're going to thread the ends in. One should be reverse thread. We'll have to figure out which one that is. There we go. That's reverse thread, as you can see, turning the wrong direction to get it to go in there. And then this one will be correct thread. And the reason for that is, once you get it all assembled, you just turn this and it'll lengthen or shorten it. Alright, ideally what you want to do is get them started the same amount on each side. So you can see that one's in maybe, what, 5 threads? And this one is in about 5 threads as well. And now, instead of turning those, all you have to do is turn the center section, and it'll screw itself in on both sides equally. Okay, let's measure. I am right at 34 on the original and right at 33.25. So I need to come out just a little bit. Holy cow, I almost forgot. You definitely want to use anti-seize. It's not a disease, it's anti-seize. This stuff is messy. It gets everywhere, all over you. Luckily for me, I forgot to put it on beforehand, but there's these gaps here, so I'm gonna get it down in there. and wiggle it around and make sure that this sucker doesn't get bound up in the future. Alright, when you got it exactly where you need it, let's go put it back on. I'll leave these loose right now because I don't know the orientation that I want to put them in once installed. Okay. Now this other side is not going to line up unless you're really, really lucky. But we've got several options. So what we can do is try to lift the axle up and down maybe until this lines up. We could also get a big ratchet strap and attach it to here and here and pull it together until that lines up. We could also loosen this up until it lines up, put the bolt through there, and then try and turn it back the exact number of turns to get it where it needs to be. Find something sturdy. I'll go here, right on the back of the axle there. Oh yeah, there it is. Perfect. Now using a torque wrench, you'll want to tighten the track bar down to 130 foot-pounds. What's pretty cool about this kit and all of the pieces that came with it, it came with this card and it's got the torque specs for the JL on here. Track bar, 130 foot-pounds for the bolts and 70 foot-pounds for these clamps. Nice. Ooh, down. Now before you did that, make sure that these clamps are good. You just want to make sure that you get them in a position where they're not going to hit on something. Like right here, you don't want to have that rotated back where it's hitting on the axle. So we're just going to tighten these up in a spot where it looks good for now and check it again later. Now if we were to have put a lift on before this, what you would want to do is to not tighten this until you set it back down on the ground, and then you would measure the axle or the tires basically from the fenders or whatever fixed point you want to, and make sure that the axle is centered left to right. If it's not, you adjust this in or out by putting a pipe wrench on it, turning it until your axle is where you want it, and then you tighten these bolts down. Alright, next we're going to assemble the tie rod and the drag link using the same method as before, pre-measuring the old and installing the new in the same measurement. This time though, I'm not going to forget the anti-seize beforehand, so coat your threads good, that way years from now when you go to take this loose, it doesn't want to fight you. I've had people tell me that this stuff is expensive. $8 on Amazon. I'll leave a link down below. Alright, one side, just as before, is reverse thread, so we got to make sure to get the right one on the right side, and I got it first time. Check that out. Let's measure this. The best way I can think to do this is from the back. So we'll go from the center to the center, and we are at 40 5/8. So I'll try to do my best to get this one to match exactly and go from there. We are at 39 inches. So we need to go out quite a bit. So I'll go like 1, 2, I'll go 5 revolutions or so on that one, and do the same on this side. And I'm getting anti-seize everywhere. This stuff gets it everywhere. So I'll get that down exactly, and the other one, and then we'll put them on. So this next one, your tie rod, is going to have a huge effect on your alignment. In fact, it's what makes your alignment possible. And that means the way your tires are pointed going down the road. You don't want them kicked out or you don't want them kicked in. So make sure to get this one as close as possible when you measure, and then you're going to have an alignment done. I'll show you in the next video how to do your own alignment. If you don't want to do that, make sure you take it though and have a professional alignment job done after you install any steering component or a lift. Check these guys out. Doesn't really mention these in the instructions, but I'm sure it's safe to say that these go on here. So you got this little O-ring that goes there, and that goes there. Zerk goes on top to secure it into place. Gives a little finishing touch. How cool is that? Alright, let's do the drag link first. So the pitman arm side, that's the straight side, it just gets a nut. So we're going to put that through, nut on top. Now this part is important. So on this side, this plastic piece, that gets thrown in the garbage. That was just for shipping. Next up, you've got this red bushing that goes there. That's tapered to fit inside of this hole. That goes through, and then you get a washer on top, washer, and a nut. There we go. And that's the same deal with the tie rod on both ends as well. Okay, now that I got that installed, let's rewind a little bit. I forgot to do something. Check this out. So this little guy is going to go right here. If you're using this, this is the new steering stabilizer relocation bracket. So before I get too involved in putting this all in here, I could probably do this after this is installed. In fact, I see them doing it on the picture, but it's going to be a lot easier to have access to this if I do it without all this junk in the way. So what I need to do is take this bolt back off. We're going to drill a hole right here, and then that's going to bolt right there in place. And then later on we'll put this stabilizer right here, and the other end will attach to the tie rod. I was wondering what this, I had this extra bolt, I didn't know where it was from. It's longer because now that we're adding extra width, this factory bolt is not long enough. So use this new bolt. It goes through here like this. I'm going to have to put some pressure on it to be able to get it in. There we go. You want this to be level across here. Now we're going to drill this out. I think it was 13/32. So we're going to start off smaller, get larger. If you don't have a transfer punch set, this is the exact reason that you should add one to your toolkit. So I need to drill out that hole, but it can't be off at all or the bolt will not fit through there. So this is a transfer punch. It fits this hole, but it's got a punch at the end. So when you start your drill bit, it's right in the center. So this fits perfectly in that hole. Then when I punch it, leaves an indentation right in the center. Now there's no guesswork as to where the center of that hole is, and I love step bits. I'm going to use this step bit until this bolt will fit through the hole. All my drill bits are junk. Whoo! Sharp drill bit makes all the difference in the world, man. We now have a new bracket. And we can get back to regularly scheduled program. And I would venture to say, now that we have the new bracket over here, we can take off the old bracket over here. And now we can sell that on eBay for $5,000. Alright, now it's going to be really hard to get a torque wrench up here on the top of the pitman arm, but it is doable. 70 foot-pounds. It's wanting to turn the whole steering wheel, drag link, and wheel, and everything. So what I can do is take something. I'll wedge this hammer up in here. Okay, now on this side, the tie rod end, the bolt was just spinning as I'm trying to tighten it. And I was wondering earlier why there's an Allen key in the bolt head. Now I see why. What you're gonna do is put this on, put the Allen key in here to keep it from spinning as you tighten it down. Once it grabs inside here, that tapered fit will take hold, and then you'll be able to let go of that Allen key. $110 foot-pounds. There we go. Alright, same process for the tie rod. You get your little red piece there with the tapered end. That goes up through. I need help. There we go. And torque, and torque, and torque, and torque. Okay guys, we're not done. Listen very carefully. I get a lot of questions on this. This is your drag link, okay? When you're going down the road and you're on the highway and you're going straight, on a straight highway, and your steering wheel is off a little bit, maybe it's to the right, maybe it's to the left. This is where you adjust that. So what you do is you pull in the garage as straight as possible, and you have somebody sitting there and you loosen these bolts. You turn this until the steering wheel is perfectly straight. It's best to do that if you were like in a big parking lot and you just got going in a really straight line and you just slowed down and stopped in a straight line. That's when you adjust your drag link, okay? To get your steering wheel straight. This down here, this is your tie rod. This affects your alignment. What you really need to do now is go get an alignment at an alignment shop. You can do it yourself, and in the next video I will show you how to do that. But basically you just turn this bar right here and that moves your tires out like this or in like this. This right here is your track bar. We already talked about that, but what that does is move your axle left or right compared to the Jeep. So if your Jeep is sitting here and you start turning this, your axle's gonna go this way or your axle's gonna go this way. So that's what the three functions here do. So first get your drag link, your track bar set up, then your drag link, and then your tie rod. Alright, so that being said, we didn't change anything. If we did our measurements correctly, everything should be spot on. The track bar, we didn't add a lift or anything like that, so the axle should be in the center. It's really, you can have minute, it can be off just a little bit and it's not going to really cause a big problem, but it should be perfect, okay? On the drag link, we measured, that should be perfect. If it's not, the steering wheel is going to be off just a little bit and we'll be able to correct for that down the road. The alignment though, the alignment is very, very important. So next video, check that out. If not, go get it professionally done. Torque spec on these clamps are 40 to 45 foot-pounds, but before you tighten these up, there's still some adjustability here. See that? You want to make sure that this is parallel, so level with the ground basically. And then go ahead and tighten up all your clamps. If you point them up like this, they're gonna get caked with mud and water. If you point them down like this, they're gonna scratch on the rocks if you go off-road. So, which way? Maybe you point them backwards, I don't know. I'm gonna do mine up like this. You also wanna make sure that they don't contact anything. So after we're done, just lost my light. After we're done, we'll go left and right and make sure that nothing is hitting. Okay, steering stabilizer. Take your steering stabilizer and compress it all the way down as far as it'll go. That's as short as it'll get. Now you're going to take it and put it in this new bracket that we installed. And one thing that I noticed is that this bolt has to go up from the bottom, otherwise it won't clear like this. So put that up from the bottom, put the nut on top. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the steering and we're going to push it over like it's all the way to the passenger side. Full lock, okay? The reason we're doing that is because that's the shortest that this shock will ever be. Now take your other bracket and we're going to put this right under it. And it comes with the bolt. Depending on what you got going on, it's got a smaller bolt and a larger bolt. And what's great about this bracket is that if you decide you want to go hydro assist, you can use this same bracket for hydro assist. How neat is that? This guy goes on the bottom and you have these Allen bolts that go into it. And torque, and torque. Woo, ain't she so pretty? Woo, pretty. All right, this is very important. Do not forget to grease all your Zerk fittings. You want to put your grease gun on there and start filling this thing up until you see it bulge up here. All right, see that? Might have put a little too much in there. That's what you want. You want to fill this rubber boot up with grease. That'll keep the water out. Okay, the last step. Make sure you've tightened all your bolts. Make sure you've tightened all your bolts to torque spec. Make sure you come back in 100 miles and check them again. These things are going to loosen up. After that, every 3,000 miles, just do a bolt check. Make sure everything is tight. Also, right now, get in there, turn your steering wheel all the way to the right. Turn your steering wheel all the way to the left. Look underneath in both directions and see if there's any clearance issues. You might have to rotate some of these clamps to make sure that nothing is hitting. After that, put your tires on, torque your lug nuts to spec, and then go get an alignment or do your own alignment. Like I said, next video is going to be an alignment video at home. But make sure you do that, otherwise your tires are going to wear pretty fast.